Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. I want to make something clear. I don't really care about Elon Musk and Twitter, and I don't use Twitter as a platform. I have a account for the nonprofit on there that I'm not even the one that logs into 99% of the time. I deleted my personal Twitter 3.5 years ago because, in my opinion, Twitter brings out the worst in humanity. It seems to encourage this negative, angry impulsivity in people that causes them to say things before thinking that they otherwise usually wouldn't say, that winds up destroying their careers, their lives, their reputations, and I know that I have a tendency for that, so I just decided to delete it because I don't know anybody that feels happier as a result of spending time on that platform. And since it doesn't do anything for me, but there's a liability, and it just seems to be filled with people that hate each other, I decided that I was not going to use it because I just don't get anything out of it. It's not my medium. Like, my medium is doing a 10-minute or 20-minute video into a camera. It's not typing 140 characters and trying to describe a complex issue in a manner that I'm not going to regret later. So I don't use Twitter. And this is something that I think is native to the platform regardless of who owns it. So regardless of whether Elon winds up purchasing it or not and changing it, whether or not you're censored on it, it's really not going to change anything for me. That being said, when I do read these articles that talk about how Elon Musk is now a darling of the far right and evil and this, that, and the other because he's discussing the concept of having less censorship on one of the most major social media platforms in the world, I usually wind up doing a combination of rolling my eyes and laughing, or like the idea that the Babylon Bee's tweet won't be taken down on a Twitter that he owns, or the fact that certain viewpoints may be able to be expressed that otherwise wouldn't be expressed, certain people may not be banned. I don't think that that would particularly be the worst thing in the world, and I think people that are acting as if the sky is falling simply because certain people may be allowed back onto the platform to actually be able to speak their mind, I'll be honest, it kind of makes me laugh a little bit. I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. I'm not a big fan of, like, again, this whole crusade that's going on here at all. But it does make me laugh and smile when I see how horribly he's being portrayed by so many news outlets simply because he wants to potentially have people have a better right to free speech. That being said, it's important to separate that from what I think is actually going to happen. I don't believe that Twitter is going to become a free speech platform, nor do I believe that Twitter will ever look the way a Usenet message board did in the mid-1990s. That's just, if you were on Usenet in the mid-1990s, you know Twitter is never, ever going to look like that. This is just a prediction. What I do believe is going to happen, I do believe that it's going to kind of be like an Apple or a Samsung self-service repair program. They'll put out some PR statements, they'll show an example, they'll show a couple of really expensive parts for only a couple of products, and forget about the fact that you're missing 99% of what you actually need for it to be functioning. I think that on certain culture war issues, they may unban like one account, or they may minorly tweak an algorithm here or there in a way where, I don't know, let's say the Babylon Bee's tweet stays up or something like that. So on a couple of popular culture war issues that'll happen. But I don't believe that this is going to become an actual honest-to-God free speech platform for a number of different reasons. Firstly, you have to understand that Twitter is an international company, and there are many other countries in the world where you don't have the free speech laws you have in the United States. You just don't. There are certain things that you just can't have people say, and if you have people say certain things in these areas, which are large markets for Twitter, then they will get into serious legal trouble in those countries. And when Elon says something, at some point, I believe an attorney will walk up to him, or an advisor will walk up to him, tap him on the shoulder, and remind him of the actual reality of what will happen if he sets out to do a certain thing, and he'll go, okay, never mind, let's do this, but not that. And I think many people think that what he's going to be doing is that, which is, allowing Twitter to look like Usenet message board in the 1990s, or a Warcraft 3 waiting room for a video game in the chat, when in reality, I don't think that is something that is going to happen. The second thing to understand, when people say he does not care about the economics, I'm not here to make money on Twitter. One thing you must understand is that Twitter has lost money for almost every single year it's been in existence, besides, I believe, 2 or 3 years. It loses massive amounts of money. So if they wind up pulling out of countries because they go for, the Usenet in the 1990s full free speech thing, they're going to be losing more and more and more. You also must keep in mind that the way this is done with a leverage buyout, Twitter is going to have over almost like billions of dollars of new debt on a company that loses millions and millions of dollars already. You're now saddling that company with more debt, and then costs that are approaching $1 billion per year to service that new debt. Now, it's one thing to say, I'm not really in this to make money. It's another thing to lose billions and billions and billions of dollars a year. Another thing to keep in mind here is this is just entirely separate from Twitter itself, is the fact that he's taking a loan against Tesla shares, or using those as collateral, in order to be able to finance the purchase of Twitter. So if Tesla stock goes down, and Tesla is an automaker that's worth more than almost every other automaker combined when they ship less cars than Toyota, you now have a situation where he can be margin called So he may be slightly less likely to YOLO if the price of his shares goes down. And there are many different reasons, whether we're talking about shortages of commodities, whether we're talking about an economic contraction, whether we're talking about Federal Reserve tightening. There's so many different things that could cause that stock to go down. There's many different risks, or the zero COVID strategy in China, and there's many different things that could potentially cause that stock to go down. And if there is now a newfound incentive for him to sell if it goes down as a result of a margin call, that could massively screw Tesla stock. Because again, if he were to actually start being forced to sell, then that could cause a chain reaction that is considerably worse than if, just a couple of bad things happens, but he held his stock. So I think that this is a decision that has a really high likelihood of massively screwing him and very, very limited upside. Even if you believe that he is not in this to make money, there's a difference between not making money doing something and losing a massive amount of money doing something while simultaneously increasing your legal liability. If Musk owns Twitter and certain things happen as a result of it being a full free speech platform that he could potentially be held legally liable for, is he really going to do that in that moment? Like, again, there's a difference between allowing the Babylon Bee to leave up an edgy tweet and, God forbid, some sort of violence happens or something happens and they can trace it back to a particular set of individuals and their speech and this, that, and the other. That's a mess. The last reason that I don't believe that this is going to be something that results in a fully free speech platform is, let's say that you actually get there, right? Let's say that you actually do get to the point of it looking like a Usenet message board in the mid-90s. One of the reasons that the platforms that are full free speech platforms are not, many of the reasons that they're not fully successful is that they have no users. Like, for instance, I have never had anybody tell me that they've been censored on Library or Odyssey. I also have 20,000 subscribers there and 1.7 million here. There's no ads on Library or Odyssey. Are you watching me on Library or Odyssey? No, you're watching me on YouTube because all the users are here. If you create a platform that rejects a lot or that pisses off a lot of the users that don't like the concept of full free speech, they will move on to other platforms that were the way Twitter was prior, and then that platform will then have a far less user base. So even if you do now have a free speech platform, you have a free speech platform where you're talking amongst yourselves. And one of the things that I notice with a lot of these alternative platforms is that they are seriously missing primary user bases. So I think that there's going to be a very interesting experiment that happens here where we see if this actually does become a full free speech platform, will it still have that first mover advantage of being one of the first large social media networks of its kind and actually retain most of its users? Or will many of those users that are crying and complaining about the idea that, God forbid, somebody be able to say something you don't like on the platform, that they all disappear and go to another platform that has more moderation? I'm very curious to see how this goes. Again, YouTube has first mover advantage when, Rumble comes out and Odyssey comes out and Library comes out and VidMe comes out and Vimeo. Like, nobody cares. I mean, let's be real. It's like, it's like the it's like the Green or the Libertarian Party in the United States. Like, they never win. It's the same thing here. You have YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else is just kind of and Instagram, and everything else just has virtually no users. Now, the question here, and I'm very curious to see how this goes, is if he actually does wind up, ignoring all of his lawyers when they tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, if you want to do full free speech, cool. Here's what it's going to be like. Here's what is going to happen with Germany. Here's what's going to happen with the White House. Here's what's going to happen when something happens to this particular kid in this particular instance. Just so you know the legal liability you're getting to. Even if he ignores the person tapping him on the shoulder, what I'm really curious to see is, does the platform actually retain its users? Will it continue to have that first mover advantage where everybody stays in the platform just because they were already there and everybody is already here? Or will everybody simply move on to another platform? If everybody moves on to another platform, then I think that Twitter may just wind up looking like the same way that, Parler and Minds or any one of these other platforms looks like, where it's not as fun because nobody's there. Part of the fun of social media is that you're on the platform with a bunch of different people. Again, even on YouTube, there's people on here that agree with me, and there's people here that think Right to Repair sucks. I mean, there's all different types of people with all different types of channels, and we are sharing subscribers, we are sharing people and thoughts and ideas amongst all of us. And the idea with and if you have a platform that is going to piss a lot of people off by virtue of going for free speech absolutism, and probably also going to piss certain countries off that are not going to be able to participate, will it be able to retain its popularity? So there's a lot to be concerned about here. A, is he even going to be able to do what he wants? And if he wants to make it look more like a Usenet message board from the night, is he actually going to be able to do that even if he buys it? I have my doubts. And I think that what you may wind up seeing is they make the PR advertisement, they gloss it like an Apple or Samsung repair program. They make it look like it's going to be a free speech platform and sound like it, but not much actually changes. B, if things actually change, does it get to retain its user base? C, What type of financial clusterfuck is he getting himself into by doing this? Again, this company loses insane amounts of money. You're taking a company that loses a fuck ton of money and saddling it with billions of dollars of debt in an economic contracting cycle with the Federal Reserve hiking interest rates. Like, that's just... I don't know. That seems like a recipe for disaster for me. That looks like a Toys R Us incoming. And many people are going to say, listen, Lewis, what the fuck have you accomplished with your life? You could barely manage to move your fucking store to a slightly larger location without losing all profitability. He's a multi-billionaire. True. True. I'm no genius, and I definitely am a stupid fucking businessman. You don't have to remind me of that. I'm reminded of that every single day that I log into QuickBooks or look in the mirror. Trust me, I'm aware that I'm an idiot. However, here's the thing. Rich people have the ability to be idiots as well. It doesn't matter if you're worth $10, 100,000, 10 million, 10 billion, 100 billion. It doesn't matter. People make stupid decisions all the time. Most of what people do in life, when it comes to big, large decisions like this, are the things that make you radically successful. At the end of the day, most people are not going to admit this to you. They may put a lot of thought in. At the end of the day, they know it's a coin flip. There are so many things that decide whether or not you are going to be successful in your idea or a failure that you have virtually no control over. And whether you're rich or whether you're poor, so much. I mean, I'm not saying that hard work isn't a part of it. I'm not saying making smart decisions isn't a part of it, but a lot of it's a coin flip. And some of your coin flips are good, some of your coin flips are bad. Doesn't matter that you're a 100 billionaire versus a 100,000aire. You still have the ability to do massively stupid shit. I personally believe that this has a very, very high chance of blowing up in his face. And while I personally enjoy watching all of these people write all these articles about how horrible he is and what a bond he has with the right wing and how much he's embracing hate speech and blah, 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 simply because he wants one of the most popular social media platforms to be a little bit more open to free speech and open discussion, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that he is making the best decision. Financially, I think he's creating a house of cards for himself that could, at the worst possible time, to create a house of cards for yourself. And I also think that, again, just for the company itself, like Twitter is not a company that has a impressive financial standing or conditions. It's not a company that had billions of dollars of debt to. Even if there are things that you want to do to make the platform better, adding billions of dollars of debt to it probably is not the best way to start making that happen. And I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that this will actually make it into a genuine free speech platform. And at the end of the day, even if it does become a genuine free speech platform, I have serious doubts as to whether or not it will retain its user base if all of them decide, fuck it, get up and leave and go somewhere else. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.